everybody. Welcome back to Talk Openly. I'm Jac, and this is my very excellent friend, Daniel. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Jack. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yeah. Yeah, I'm showing up in this funky hat today, which is super cool. It's covered in felt flowers.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It seemed like a good Halloween addition to my wardrobe. Uh, but yeah, I also feel a little bit, like I don't know if you ever wear things that, when it draws attention to you, it's kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like I know when you had your mustache, right? That was like an example where it was like, okay, I'm not super comfortable, but I'm gonna see what this is like.
Okay.
But yeah, I have this friend, her name's Lori, and she makes these incredible hats. Like she's got a whole shop. And I went to see her yesterday, and she fitted me with two hats. And so yeah, I now have two kind of artisan felt hats. Uh, so
Is it just for Halloween, though?
no, they're definitely not just for Halloween. I just have to get comfortable wearing them outside of a
Well, it
Halloween.
looks good on you, so just rock it. Come on,
Thanks.
rock it, Jack. You got this.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's good. Lori, if you're listening, I could use a hat. Do you see this?
Yeah,
My,
Daniel.
my head gets cold. All I have is I have a hat, but I only have this one hat, and it keeps me warm. But you know,
Yeah,
that's
it's
about
kind
it.
of, yeah, it's just like your everyday beanie. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just a hat.
You need
Yeah.
like what are those kind of the red caps that just kind of sit on top? I think that would look pretty cool. It starts a
Oh,
fez.
Oh, a fez would be really cool. I do have a traditional, I forget what they're called, but it's a traditional Pakistani hat. So it's I forget what it's made out of, but it's the most interesting hat that I have.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Um, well, yeah, aside from fun hats, we are going to be talking about the things that scare us in this show tonight. I'm really looking forward to that because there's plenty that scares me. And then also talking a little bit about like, okay, what things does the Dharma tell us maybe we should be thinking about that should be scaring us? So I think it's going to be a good evening, Daniel, a good spooky
You know what,
Halloween.
Jack? I've never had an evening with you that wasn't good.
I know. Yeah, that's true. We could have we could have like a mediocre evening.
Oh yeah, okay, all
Maybe
right. That would
maybe
be kind of scary for sure. If we ended up with a mediocre evening, then I'd be afraid for sure.
sometimes I have to say sometimes my energy level, at least for me, I feel like I'm like just like lukewarm,
Oh yeah.
like taking a shower in like lukewarm water. So
Um,
hopefully I never it's never that obvious to you or the audience, but
Well, I was just talking to a friend about that today, who was asking about the show, and I was telling them how even if no one ever listened, no one ever watched, how much I thoroughly enjoy getting a chance to talk with you every single week, and how a lot of times, not a lot, but it's happened on more than one occasion that I've been maybe lukewarm or something else. Not feeling particularly good or whatever you might want to call it, and low spirits or angry or depressed or something like that. And then I show up thinking like grumble, 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 grumble. And then we get here, we start talking, and by the time the show's done, I'm just like, oh, I feel great.
I know it's such a trip. Yeah, I think that yeah, having good friends like is so essential. I don't know. Yeah, we can't do it without good friends. I
It's
think I fully believe. Yeah.
How are you, good friend? What have you been up to?
I'm good. Yeah, I've having some interesting days. I think work has been a little bit challenging, but good stuff. Uh I'm starting a new group on the inpatient unit. I'm going to be doing a harm reduction based group. And it's interesting because, I no longer use substances. And I also very strongly recognize that using substances does harm to the body and mind. However, I think that like harm reduction as an approach to support people who are not currently in a place in their lives or in their minds to quit using is just such an important thing and like tool to have because it's been proven to like reduce like disease spreading and to just have safer use strategies. So like for example, instead of injecting, try smoking or snorting, which like sounds so like when I first like heard of harm reduction, I was like, wow, I can't believe that people are talking about this stuff. But when you really get into it, it just makes sense. It's like, okay, if we really want people to live better lives, then we have to like find ways for people to be alive. um so that they can like eventually get to a place where maybe they can reduce their use or stop using. So yeah, that's been interesting to kind of like dig into, and also maybe feel a little bit of conflict with people who are doing kind of like different addiction strategies at work. So um but what's so interesting is that my alarm bells are not going off in the way that I feel like they would have used to. Like for example, I got an email in response to my kind of like interest in starting this new group on the unit. I got an email that was like, replied all to everyone on the email from from like the recovery specialist on the unit. That was like a little bit cool, like a little bit kind of cold response. Not like very not directly so, but it felt a little bit like, oh, okay, there's some feelings around this. And I think what would have happened before having met the Dharma is I would have gone into that like arousal state of like, okay, this person is now someone who I need to like be in an adversarial position with. They don't like me. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to make things really hard. It's going to be shitty and toxic. And I'm going to need to find ways to push back against them.
Yeah.
But instead, what I did was I just read the email and was like, okay, great. That's that person's perspective.
Nice.
It doesn't have to mean anything.
Right.
And so that actually felt like somewhat strange because there was this part of me that was like, shouldn't I be thinking something else about this? And then I
Yeah.
was like, no, actually, I don't need to. um, so that's been feeling good that like I kind of catch these moments of like Dharma in real life, that has
Yeah.
been, yeah, inspiring.
That's fun when you can see your normal, habitual, reactive sort of way lessening, right? Decreasing, where you're like, wait a second. Wait, I'm normally I'd be reacting to this and sometimes reacting quite fiercely to it, digging in my heels and arguing my point and defending
Yeah.
myself and all of that. And then
Paranoia. Yeah.
yeah, all of that, and the way that it agitates the mind, right? Like that email could easily have triggered, multiple days worth of
Oh
thinking
yeah.
all kinds of thoughts, right? And instead, you just sort of are like kind of like we were talking about receiving criticism, right? Where
Mm.
you're just like, hmm, okay, all right then,
Yeah.
that's well enough, and then you just move on with your day, right? That's
Right.
fantastic. Ah,
Yeah.
I
I
love
know.
that. The Dharma at work.
Yeah, that feels really good. Yes. Yeah, and also like other moments where like I can tell that there's like the potential for like gossip or kind of like deriding others in a conversation. And I just kind of like don't feed the beast. Like I'm like willing
Yeah.
to listen, but I don't respond in a way that I normally would. So it's like, okay, yeah, I feel how that's working and how it also helps the other person in the situation feel safe, I think,
Right.
like safer with me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, It's good stuff. I want to
It
be the
definitely,
safest person that I
it
can be.
definitely makes you a safer person.
Yeah.
And when people feel safe around you, then things can happen because then they can really share honestly, right? And they can listen better because they don't have to be defensive. They
Yeah.
can sort of get, they can emulate some of your patterning, right? Like what you're laying down. They're like, oh, I guess I can do that too, right? If two people walk into a room and they both have swords, right? Like who's
Yeah.
going to put this? If one person just lays the sword down at the other one's feet, it certainly sort of indicates a safer presence.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
And
I
then the
like
other
that
person can
image.
lay it down too, right? Lay down our weapons and actually meet and have a discussion. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's beautiful.
Yay. Dharma.
Yay!
Tell me about your week. What's happening with you?
Well, I feel overwhelmed,
Mm,
and it seems like stuff, if you will, inputs are coming in from a variety of channels, from like work and family and friends, and just there's like a lot going on. And I think it's interesting because it's a similar thing as what you were just talking about, where I notice uh, my normal sort of reaction or my habitual pattern of dealing with feelings of being strained or overwhelmed or whatever um, aren't there. It's fascinating, right? Like where I was just talking to my friend today about that, where I was like, it's really interesting. Like I got so like just work alone is like way more than I know. I don't even know what to do with it all. It's like I
yeah.
can't keep up with it, and like I feel like I'm losing, like I'm missing some stuff, and not I'm not being perfect at work, so to speak, right? And that what I noticed is actually, so here's what I noticed in my meditation and in my daily life as of maybe not the whole week but the last couple of days, which is that I'm off balance. Just
Mm,
it's doesn't matter whether I'm seated in meditation or working my daily life. It's just off balance, like it's moving, right? It's wiggling
mm,
all around. And what I would have done in the past is I would have added some countermeasures that would have taken me even more off balance, right?
yeah.
So I definitely would in the past have resorted to drinking more, right? I'm
Mhm.
not drinking at all, but drinking
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
right? Like drinking more than
More
I
than
would
what
have
you were
usually.
drinking. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So and that, like let's say I did that. Well, then if I did drink, let's say like I had like I actually got to where I like kind of it did the trick and I was no longer worried and I could just relax and everything was better for a moment. Well, the next day I would feel like crap,
Yeah.
right? And then that would make things worse. I wouldn't be able to handle things even more. So it would just continue to get further and further off balance, less and less stable.
Mhm.
And that's not what's happening now. I simply recognize that it's off balance, that there's a lot going on. And then, sort of like in a similar way, I don't have to feed the beast.
Mm,
I don't have to agitate the situation and make it worse. And as a result of not making it worse and really attempting to gain clarity, it simplifies things, makes it a little bit easier to deal with, and then I can actually get to where I want to be, and I can be like, all right, so here's how I'm going to handle these things and be proactive and do things that are constructive, moving me in a direction that I think will be beneficial rather than the exact opposite, right?
right.
Engaging in self-destruction and making the situation a hell of a lot worse. So
Mm.
I'm grateful for that because I know that tendency is there.
Oh
you
yeah.
know
Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm incredibly grateful for all of our practices. And even when my like it's amazing because before what I kind of saw a lot of the sort of storms kind of brewing and coming, like it started to get like more energetic, I would say, or whatever you want to call it in my life. And I noticed that my sits when I was in meditation were incredibly calm,
Mm.
incredibly collected. The present, it was amazing, very stable, very calm, very clear. And so, like I kind of wanted, I was like, oh, I hope this sticks, and it'll stay like this forever, right? But then I noticed, like, no, actually, sometimes when I'm meditating, it's also kind of chaotic in there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, it's workable. All of this stuff is workable. And I
That's
think that
right.
that's the good news, right? We can
That is-
take some action to make change, or not make change, but rather to kind of lean things in a direction that we want to be going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's something in there too about like distress tolerance that I'm hearing, that like
Stress
um
tolerance.
yeah, yeah, that like uh your tendency to kind of go towards ameliorating the pain in the moment, right? With like drugs or alcohol, that with the Dharma, we kind of have to just say, you know what, I'm just going to tolerate this. Like I can't,
Oh yeah.
like
Oh
I have to just choose, because I don't have these other strategies. I have to just choose to tolerate it. And then what opens up for that is like this real, opportunity to examine what's happening. And then in turn, that it's constantly shifting and that it is workable. And
yeah.
it feels like sometimes our strategies to move away from distress are because we're thinking that something's permanent. We're permanentizing something.
Yeah.
Um and when really, like, if we just kind of sit and watch it shift, then it inevitably does. Or we, are able to find a solution that is much more clear-headed. Um so yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's like these moments are uh yeah, they're shifting. um, so can I tap into that rather than just say, "Oh, F it, get out of my way."
Ah,
And
yeah,
rock solid thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the stress tolerance is much higher, and there's a lot more simply, like there's a greater interest in being present with it, whatever it is, the sort of source of irritation. There's actually a lot more curiosity around it than there would have been in the past, right? Because like you said, it's sort of like right now it's there, right? And instead of my typical escapist avoidance strategy, I don't really want to pursue that anymore. So turning towards it rather than turning away from it, and looking at it quite deeply and staying with it, right? And taking sort of, in many cases, I find it to be a really sort of playful curiosity with regard to sometimes what feels like kind of like serious stuff, right? And instead of being all serious and bent out of shape about it, I can kind of just be like, oh, huh. That's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal, right? Especially I saw somebody, I was talking to somebody who's associated with our sangha who's dealing with cancer, and they were saying that cancer was really kicking their ass, and then they said one of the things that helps me a lot is to just compare my current situation to the extremes of human existence alone,
Yeah.
just within human existence. Not We're not talking about all the other realms, the hell realms and the god realms and everything just yet. Just among humans, how do I compare? And that helps me to be grateful for whatever I'm like my situation is, because it could be a heck of a lot worse.
Right. Yeah, we could be in a war zone and have cancer. There's all
Ah,
different
oh my God.
permutations that are just horrific. Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. So yeah, there's different ways of training the mind for sure. I'm glad that we have so many different practices. They have different methods of working with it. It's fantastic.
It is amazing. Yeah. Yeah. That from shamatha to tantra, and tonglen, which I
Yeah.
know there was a tonglen practice last week that I wasn't able to make, but yeah, we have, and so much just at the temple.
Ooh,
Um,
well, can I tell you one that, okay, this is I
yeah, please.
attempted something the other day that I thought what I was doing was practicing exchanging self with other, which is sort of part of the Tonglen sort of thing, right? Um, Lama ended up correcting me, telling me that, yeah, I'm not quite what I was actually doing. Well, I'll tell you the story first. So I was at the library. Stop me if I already told you this. I don't think I did, but I was at the library, and the libraries nowadays, I don't know if you have been in the library recently, but they're no longer quiet zones, right?
Oh, but in
Yeah.
Sacramento?
What's that?
In Sacramento?
in Sacramento and
Yeah.
maybe even beyond that, but definitely in Sacramento, they are no longer quiet zones. So
Yeah.
people, you're actually allowed to talk as much as you want, and you can make whatever noises you want. Don't be too obnoxious, but for the most part, like it's not hush hush quiet zone.
Yeah.
And this one library in particular that I work from sometimes is has a diverse group of people, including like a lot of unhoused people, many sort of people that are dealing with mental health issues, yeah, families with young children who are all looking for a respite,
Yeah.
and looking for the same resources that I'm using at the library, right? But it's different. It's my expectation of sort of like respecting the quiet space and all of that are not being met
Yeah.
whatsoever, right? Anyway, so I work from the library a few days a week, and there's a number of characters who are there on the regular basis, including
Mhm.
this one. There's one who he laughs and makes wild noises the entire day, and he's there right when they open till when they close, and he is literally laughing feverishly and talking just what sounds like gibberish. I think he's just speaking another language, but I don't get it.
Mhm.
And initially, I could see like this great irritation sort of building. And if I'm in a already somewhat overwhelmed, irritable state, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
I noticed I was getting even more, sort of irritated. I thought, hang on a second. I'm going to attempt to exchange myself with him. So first I equalized. I was like, he just wants to be happy and avoid suffering. And I could see that. I was like, yeah,
Mm.
okay. All right. Like we're the same in that regard. I get it. And then I was like, no, I'm actually going to like be him. Right.
Mm.
And so I'm sitting there in the library and I imaginatively become him. And two things happened. One, I was overjoyed.
Yeah.
The reasons he was laughing were the reasons why I was happy. I was just like things were good, and I was like talking to my friends or whoever was on the other line, and the jokes or whatever was causing the laughter was all arising, and I was like I was feeling pretty good. And then I considered myself sitting there at the table, Daniel, from his perspective, and I didn't exist in his world. He wasn't even
Mm.
aware of me. I was
Mm.
nothing. Like all of my concerns, all my worries, all my everything didn't mean anything. They weren't even there on the radar whatsoever. And it
Yeah.
was really cool because I really was like nothing, nobody in that moment. Anyway, I found that to be remarkable. I ended up talking to Lama about it because I was like, oh, right, I was doing this. And he was like, well, the exchanging self with other, that's what you were doing is more like re-identification, which is
Mm.
good for you. And he's like Tong Lin, and all of this is a big huge subject and there's a lot to talk about. He is like, I don't know if that's technically what we mean by exchanging self and other, but
Yeah.
still a good experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's really sweet though. And I think, yeah, anytime that we can put ourselves in someone else's shoes and try and understand where they're coming from, like that's a good mind training right there.
Totally,
And it sounds like it
totally.
really helped you like develop some compassion and, just
Oh my god.
understanding. Like,
Yeah, understanding, and I think the part that blew me away was the complete and utter destruction of me. Like I for a moment I was really like nobody. Like
yeah.
the same way so many people that I see are like nobody. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
there's so many just like what do you call what's the term that people use now? Um NPCs, non-playable characters. Have you
Mm.
heard you've heard this term?
No, I haven't, but it sounds very yeah,
I,
kind of
it's
cold
a it,
and
it's alluding to video games. You know how
Mhm.
like some of the characters are just sort of like they're just there to be ornaments or whatever. You can't actually interact with them. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
play with them. They're just there to do a thing or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, the notion is that there's all these sort of like NPCs out there that are just like there. And in
Yeah,
fact it's sort of what our experience oftentimes is like. There's people who
right.
matter, that we engage with, that we play with. And then there's all those others that don't matter. And in this case, I was the non-playable character. I was the
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, we just all these people that we see it in our day to day are just kind of they're objects,
yeah, Yeah,
we're the subject in our world, and everyone else is an object, and we're not thinking about how they have that exact same experience.
that's right.
They're
That's
the
right.
subject in their world. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, I'm not just an object. I have real life concerns. Don't you understand?
Oh man, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And I love too llamas, like, anytime I feel like I've maybe kind of gotten something, and it's just like, not really, but that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, that's exact that same, even some of the big ones, right? Some of the aha
Yeah.
moments where you're like, this was it. There was a realization. Ah. And he's like, hmm, oh, it sounds like that inspired you. That's good. That's good.
Right. Yeah, that was an experience.
Yeah. Aw.
Great.
We have
Well,
so much to learn, Jack.
oh, so much to learn. Yeah, I'm so grateful. Really, like, so incredibly grateful. I'm seeing Llama sometime this week because he's up here in Washington.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that. Definitely going to make some time at the end of the week. And yeah, I'm just constantly blown away that I know this teacher who knows me, like, and is
right.
who knows me personally. And it's just kind of sometimes feels really scary, right? Because it's like um this intimacy that feels like all of my shit is being uncovered, which I think is going to be part of maybe what I share tonight. Something I'm scared of is being like being revealed, right? Being
Exposed.
exposed and like being finger pointed at,
Yes. Yeah.
um and Llama does that in so far for me very gentle ways, which
Yeah,
might.
Jack, I was thinking about it because I've talked to some fellow students who have been with him for a while and who have had not as gentle sort of pointers or
Yeah.
exposed expositions. Exposed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know what you call
Exposés.
exposés. And they reveal how sort of difficult it is for them. And I was thinking about it. I was actually a little jealous, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I was like, man, I kind of like, I was toying with the idea of specifically telling him, like, hey, you could take the gloves off, right? Like, like I wouldn't mind actually if you exposed me and pointed it at my silly ego and my,
Yeah,
all of this, my neuroses and all of that. And then I realized I was like, well, that's actually a bit neurotic as well, right?
totally.
Like
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful, and he has gently guided me, along the beginning of the path where I
Yeah.
am, and I trust that he will know when the right time to push hard on me
Yeah.
is, and I certainly don't need to tell him how to do what he does. He's an
Yeah.
expert at it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's very right. Um, and uh and maybe that'll be a good reflection for us on like we'll know that we've progressed a little bit more when maybe things
Right.
start getting a little bit less gentle.
Yes, yes, exactly. There's a part
Even
of
if
me that's
it's
sort of,
good things.
I'm like ready. I'm ready for it. And then I think about it, I'm like, oh no, man. Like
I know. I'm such a little baby Buddhist.
I know, just a little, like a wee little baby.
I'm only 5 years in, I think now is in 2024, it's yeah, it's gonna be 5 years that I'll have taken refuge.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah, and I started going to the temple about 5 years ago now. So
Maybe
that's
you're gonna start
cool.
hitting those steeper parts of the slope soon. Some of the
Yeah,
crevices and sort of difficult terrain will be coming up.
yeah, yeah. We shall see. Yeah. Ooh, fun. Um, well, yeah, should we keep training our minds? Should we check out
Ooh,
some Mahjong?
I like that idea. Hang on a second here. Let me share my screen.
Gosh, one thing about felt hats, they're warm.
Yes, indeedy. They
Yeah,
sure are.
I'm gonna pull this puppy off for a bit. Here's the like flowers from above. Very nice.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
All right, you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. We are on the random Lojong slogan generator on the lionsroar.dharmacenter.org website, where you can find it under the teachings menu. So if you're listening to this and you want to play with the random Lojong slogan generator, like Jack and I are about to do, that's where you're going to want to do it. There you go. All right,
Great.
shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
Whoa, that's a long one.
Ooh.
All
Also, I
right.
don't think that we've done this one, Jack.
I don't think we've done this one either.
I'm going to
Okay.
put my glasses on to get this.
So number 19, all dharma has a single purpose. All right. So let's see. I'll start. The first instruction is that all dharma, all the teachings of the Hinayana and Mahayana have one common purpose: to reduce or eliminate the clinging to a self. Whatever dharma we practice, whatever mind training we meditate on, the purpose is to diminish that clinging. If our clinging doesn't diminish, then our practice isn't working properly. If we notice that the continual thought of ourselves as important is decreasing, it is one sign that mind training is working. Great. Should I continue?
Yeah, I do.
Just
I
read the
think
whole thing?
so.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, read the whole thing. Yeah.
If we want to know whether our Dharma practice is working or not, we have to examine it by asking, do I still consider myself to be important? Am I still clinging to myself as something precious? Yes, for me. For instance, if we had a piece of gold and wanted to know how much we had, we could not know this just by looking at it. We would have to put it on a scale and weigh it. Similarly, measuring our clinging to self is a way of telling if our Dharma practice is working. Is our clinging to the self diminishing or increasing? It is said that there are 84,000 kinds of dharma, which are too numerous to understand and practice fully. For instance, if practitioners in the main vehicles of the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana do not have a thorough understanding, they may have the impression that the Hinayana or Shravyakyana is very different from Mahayana, and even more different from the Vajrayana. This is not a correct view, because all of the Buddha's teachings agree.
Oh,
Great.
this is fantastic. This is
Yeah, it is.
so good.
This
So
kind of,
Jack, you
yeah, yes,
said
please.
while you were reading it in response to the self clinging, like, do or do I still consider myself important? Am I clinging to myself as something precious? And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, hell yeah, of course, I notice it all the time, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
noticing it indicates some progress, right? Just noticing it, and it's not as strong. there's
Yes.
a there's a there's a decrease in that clingingness, and I notice at the same time that I remain committed to the practices that I know are reducing it,
Yeah.
right? so
Yes.
so I believe in the process, right? I trust the process, and I notice the beginning of the effect. I definitely don't notice the culmination of it for sure. But that last point, the reason I kind of got excited there is that I, for one, before I still don't really understand anything about the 84,000 kinds of Dharma, right? I have so much to learn as a little baby Buddhist here, but what when I first got started, I remember thinking like thinking about the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, and thinking them of them as one's right, one's wrong, sort of this sort of classic thinking. One's
Yeah.
better than the other. There's one that's lower, one that's better, one that's greater, one that's smaller. And I have to admit that there was this temptation where I was like, ooh, the diamond lightning, fast single lifetime. I'm going to do it. This is the one. This is the right path, because all those other ones, there's something wrong with them. And I didn't know anything about any of it. Right. And now one of the things that I find so beautiful is I recognize actually that, within our tradition, we're practicing all of it.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And that there's a deep and profound reverence and respect for the Buddha's teachings, regardless of the tradition that it gets taught in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's interesting, too, about all of the teachings agree on the point that clinging to a self is going to be, yeah, suffering. And there might be different beliefs on, like, yeah, the permanence of objects, or, like how to
Yeah.
get towards, reducing the self-clinging or whatnot. But all of them agree on that one point. We've got to reduce that and eliminate. I like that. Reduce or eliminate. How interesting that it says have one common purpose: to reduce or eliminate the clinging to a self. So I
Yeah.
imagine that that's like the reduction is like the kind of the Hinayana, and then the elimination is the Mahayana. And
Well,
maybe I don't know that completely, but
sure, sure, but think about it. It's the same model as you were talking about at the outset, right? There's harm reduction,
yeah,
and there's
yes,
and that it's sort of like it's a spectrum.
yeah,
That's what our experience is that that what we're noticing, at least in my case, what I know, and I imagine it's the same for you, is that we're noticing a reduction. There is actually we are less harmful to ourselves. We're less harmful to others. It doesn't mean that we're not, right? It doesn't mean that we don't cling a little bit to ourselves, or that we don't cherish ourselves a little bit. But it's not as strong. It's not as toxic, right? It's not as dysfunctional as it has been in the past, and that's fantastic. Like, yes, of course, there's the cold turkey model, right? There's the all or nothing, black or white sort of model. But at least within my experience, and I meant to say this when you were talking about it in terms of drug addiction or addiction in general, is that there's something really incredibly approachable about saying it's not black or white. You can enter right here. It's sort of that start where you are, like, yes, this is where you are, and begin to work on it. And over time, with commitment, with diligence, with right effort, you continue to apply. This will work. The
yeah,
stuff it'll do the trick. And we're
yeah,
noticing that. That's what gives us confidence. That's what inspires faith, right? Is that
right,
we see it working. We're like, wow, oh my God. Like when I do these things, my ability, my tendency to harm myself and others reduces.
yeah, yeah. Awesome stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, the Rime view, which is that, all the different schools have value and teach us what the Buddha wanted us to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't all
Great.
learn the same way, huh?
Yeah, we don't all learn the same way. No, no, not at all. It would be so sad if there was only one way
Yeah.
to learn the Dharma, because yeah, I think there's infinite ways to learn, and that's why we have teachers um, who are able to, yeah, kind of help us with that our own unique way of learning. Yeah. Um, well, scary stuff, Daniel. We're going to talk about some things that scare us tonight, and a little bit about, yeah, what we might actually want to have a little bit of healthy, healthy fear or aversion for.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm curious in terms of like the kind of just silly Halloween stuff. Are you scared of ghosts? Are you
No.
scared of
I
ghosts
was
and ghouls?
when I was a little kid. I would within I believed in like not ghosts but like demons, right?
Yeah, 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 totally. Me too.
Yeah, and
Big
when
time.
the wind would blow and things were banging on my window, or my
Wow.
toes were poking out over the edge of
Oh
the bed
no.
or whatever. Oh my gosh, that I was terrified. Yeah,
Yeah. No
absolutely.
toe poking. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
danger right there.
For sure, keep your toes in. But within the sort of traditional, sort of silly, whatever stuff, I think the thing that that stands out to me is that from a young age, I was terrified of black widow spiders.
Really?
I'd heard at a young age, somebody told me, like, I think it was a well-meaning adult who was like, those are terrible. They will kill you. You will die. Like,
Yeah.
don't mess with them. And what that prompted was a lot of me like being terrified of them and like seeking to kill them whenever I saw them. And like it was and then as I grew up, like they would be in my dreams and all kinds of stuff. My
Oh.
relationship to them has changed dramatically. I have nothing against black widows, but if I know they're around, I respect them. Like.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna go trying to like grab them or anything. But
Yeah,
if I
no,
think
that's a good
if I think they're around, I'll put some gloves on before moving the wood or whatever. But yeah, other than that, like it's all good. But yeah, I was terrified of black widows
Yeah,
and
yeah.
elevators. Ah,
Oh, like being in a confined space and
it's the combination. It's all okay. So it's all related to loss of control, right? And so and it's similar to like airplanes, confined space. I'm not in control.
mhm.
And if something goes wrong, there's going to be a period of time. Like it'd be one thing if I just like instant, like there was like instant something, but you know, like an airplane or an elevator, there's going to be a period where I'm sensing and aware of what's happening, right?
Yeah,
You know, and I don't
yeah, for sure.
it doesn't
Ooh.
scare me as much as it used to, but it's still there. That feeling of like loss of control is a big one.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me.
What about
Yeah.
you? What are your scary things?
Um, I'm definitely pretty afraid of ghostly stuff. Yeah, supernatural stuff. I've had some kind of like neutral-ish ghost experiences in my life. Um, and then but yeah, the like stories of ghosts all just like kind of freak me out. But yeah, it's interesting. Like there was one time that I woke up when I was a kid that I was like awake and I saw these like spirits over my bed. And they were interesting and they weren't necessarily like positive or negative. They were just kind of there. Um, that was interesting. And then I had another experience where I was backpacking alone in up in the Tahoe area and woke up to have this like spirit in my bed. In my tent, like above me. And at the time I was learning Reiki. And so my first thought was just to like send the spirit Reiki. And it went away.
Nice.
So it's interesting because like I fear the supernatural, but when I feel like I have had potential experiences with them, or even just, like dreamlike things, I've been able to handle it in the moment. So that's kind of cool to know too,
Yeah.
that
I
like,
love that. I love that. So I haven't had any like experiences that weren't induced, I guess, or dreamlike, or in dreams rather. But one thing that I've noticed is you mentioned like sending them Reiki. I have noticed like in dreams where I was confronted with some kind of really evil being, some kind of terrible, monstrous being, whether it was human or not, and that the most effective thing has always been to turn towards them and
yeah,
just say like, how can I help you? What do you want? You know, and it turns out that they, in many cases, they're not what I thought they were, and either they just sort of like go away, or it actually turns out that there's something beneficial there. So
yeah. Ooh, isn't that a fascinating little nugget of wisdom there? Yeah, that underneath the monstrous evil, there's like something that needs to be healed or, that
that's
wants to
right.
give in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We
Ooh,
can our demons can become allies.
yes. Yes, they are. Ooh, excellent. Yeah, as far as like unsupernatural things, I do have some fears around death and dying. Um, the death experience, the process after, dying alone. I really don't want to die alone. And I also really fear anyone I love dying alone.
Yeah,
Those are things that scare me. And also having regrets. Like I don't want to have any regrets with my loved ones when they
sure.
pass. So those are things that um yeah, sometimes give me a little
Do
shiver.
you, I think the question is like, is the fear around the dying? So when it comes to you personally, is the fear around you dying, or is it about death itself?
I think maybe that's all there. Like there's certainly the kind of um self-grasping that happens when I think about like the actual dying and leaving, like not having a body and not having any more this sense of experience within the world, the
Mhm.
what like the constructs that I have now as Jack. that just not being the way that my consciousness experiences the world. That's scary. Like that kind of freaks me out.
Right.
But then there's also this way that like if I meditate with that, there is somewhat of a peacefulness that comes with examining that. Um, and I really do think it would be useful for me to do more meditations on death. Um,
Mm.
yeah, there was this really great one that one of the monks who lives at Sravasti Abbey did a while back, where it was a guided meditation on imagining your body decomposing, and
Oh,
it was actually gorgeous.
yeah.
Like it was,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, okay, I can see witness that happening in my own flesh, just watching it, you know, peel away. It was, yeah,
See
really,
that
really good.
all of like that kind of stuff, I kind of like it, like
Really, yeah,
I enjoy it. I kind of, there's a odd weird part of me that's sort of like the actual death, like post death, let's just say. I'm kind of like I'm kind of in favor of it. I'm not going to say I'm like excited and like like want it to happen right now, but there's this, there's this, I'm a curious sort of person, and so like there's this wonder about, oh,
yeah,
like whatever, whether it was a complete even if I believed it was a complete cessation and complete annihilation, even if I believe that, I find that part interesting. But within the context of our mind stream, right, and the continuity of consciousness, I find it even more fascinating. But then I realized, like, no, but the me here, this guy who finds that fascinating and interesting, is not. We're not talking about the same thing, right?
yeah,
that's
yeah,
this mind, that's these perceptions. And so I kind of I kind of like to play with the die or the death part, but the dying part freaks me out.
yeah. Oh, like the actual like being ill or
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's scary. Yeah, yeah,
That part freaks me out a lot, like uh it's the combination of like, okay, if it's old age, that freaks me out. If it's illness and or old age, it freaks me out, especially the illness stuff, because that part gets me, like, the various cancers and all kinds of just I know it's weird. I know it's going to happen, right? Like the degrading of the body, it's already
yeah.
happening. It's already sort of falling apart. And if I survive long enough, right, it's just going to continue. It's going to like be degrading and not decomposing, hopefully, but falling apart, right, and not working anymore. And that part just freaks me out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The part of that that freaks me out the most is like the brain, losing its capacity. Like,
Yeah.
my grandfather had dementia, and his was like not pretty. I know most people's aren't, but it was
No.
really, really not pretty. And yeah, I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. And
No.
also that's a place where there's no way that you can study the dharma when you're in that state of mind. Or maybe there is maybe there is some way that mind can. I
I
don't know.
heard a story about a lifelong practitioner, a monk, I believe, who ended up getting dementia, where even though memory failed and all kinds of things, the typical sort of hallmarks of dementia were there, that because of this strong regular practice, there was, if I remember the story correctly, people would still come to him for advice, and he was still able to do that in some
That's
respect.
awesome.
Yeah, so I don't know
Yeah.
what that means though.
Yeah, totally. Hmm.
Hmm. What
Yeah,
kind of
what
things? So there's all kinds of stuff to be afraid of, or that we could be afraid of. All kinds of like potentially scary things in this world. Like we
yeah.
could spend lifetimes just describing all the terrible ways that we could, the things that we could possibly fear. But a lot of it's like the way that I oftentimes think about it, and that has been really helpful, is like I don't really spend a lot of time in fear or being scared of things, because if I need to be scared, I like if I need like if I'm required to be scared, like there actually is a demonic ghost about to chomp down on me, and I know that that's about to happen, or there's a lion chasing me, then I know that I'm going to react in that moment and do whatever it is that I need to do. Right? I just
Mm,
know that. I can trust that part of the process. So I don't need to spend a lot of mental energy now, nail biting and
that's a
being
good way to think about it. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
need to be paranoid now because I trust me, like the few times that something has like been ready to bite me or whatever, like I have taken care of it. I didn't spend any time
Yeah.
being scared of it. So, I think that that's kind of helpful, right? And also because it's usually not like in the same sense, it's not here right now.
Mm,
So I'm not going to spend time here and now worrying about it or thinking about it too much, right? Like I'll avoid, for example, the black widows, right? Like if I see them,
yeah.
I'll be mindful of it, but I'm not gonna like sit here and like worry about it, right? Be
Oh my
afraid.
gosh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a panic disorder right there. Yeah. Or like, being so obsessed with one particular fear that it just totally consumes your whole life. Like I've met people like that and I've been in that state before. It is torture. It's
Yes,
so much
indeed.
torture. There's no life. There is no life in there. It's just fear. Like, wow, that it is interesting to think of that as like one of the different realms. Like I wonder
Yes.
if in some way that's somewhat of an animal realm, like just living constantly like hyper vigilant,
Sure.
looking out for, whatever's gonna kill you next. Um, like that feels possibly like an animal realm or maybe a hell realm of some kind, just constant fear. And yeah, it's an awful way to live.
Mm.
um so I love what you're saying about like, okay, this it's just not happening right now, so I'm gonna
Right.
just do this this thing. But how profound that is for us to realize that.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal. Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. But so yeah, there's all kinds of stuff, scary stuff in the world, but there's also like things that we should be worried about,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At least, from within our training and within, on the path that we're on,
Yeah.
there are dangers. I was actually, there's the little green Tara shrine room in the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and took a picture of a little, there's like an explanation of Green Tara in there. And it says that Green Tara, she protects us from fear, right? And these 8 obscurations: the lion of pride, the elephant of ignorance, the fire of anger, the snake of jealousy, the thieves of wrong views, and the bondage of miserliness, the floods of desire and attachment, and the evil spirits and demons of deluded doubts.
Oh, those are the real fears, huh? We're
Those we should be
really
worried
fearing.
about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and what those all lead to is yeah, wandering aimlessly in cyclic existence.
Oh,
Just continually.
Jack, Jack,
And
that's the scariest. Honestly, like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the scariest.
Yeah, I know. I've just kind of started to touch on how that actually is very scary. Um, yeah, I was actually thinking the other day, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to go through like childhood and adolescence again. I don't want to do that. Like, I just now in my mid 30s feel like I'm starting to get some sense of stability in my understanding in the world, and I don't want to have to be a kid again or a
No,
teenager. That
no.
sounds horrible.
Right?
But I will.
Especially since we know, not to bring too much of a dark spin in, but like I just read something to the effect of within Gaza, it's 400 children that are being killed or harmed every day
Yeah.
as a result of the war that's happening there. And
Yeah.
imagine, like you're a child and you're growing up with something like that, or growing up with abusive parents or family, or there's all
Yeah.
kinds of situations where you could be a child, a human child, and it could be way worse than either childhood that, we lived through or suffered through or whatever, right? And that's assuming we're born human.
Yeah. Right. Right. I know.
No guarantee there either.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we got to keep doing our training. I mean, that is what Tara is telling us here is like your protection is your training in compassion and reducing this attachment to self, and all these things, pride, ignorance, hatred, jealousy, wrong views, greed. God, greed is one for me. Oh God, I notice it so often where I'm just like,
What are you greedy for, Jack?
oh, just dumb things. Like there was this lady who was walking uh in the other aisle to get to the ferry, and the etiquette is that you stay in one lane because it's a line, and she was walking in the other lane and I started speeding up so she wouldn't get in front of me. And that was just this morning, because it was like, no, that's not how we do it. There's places. And so I was feeling like greedy about my like one spot in the line.
Yeah.
But it's just these little things that just really it's where it's all about me. That I want to feel more fear of in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Instead of that kind of like what it feels like, just this real immediate like, no, I need to get in there, right? I need to kind
Right.
of assert myself. I know we've talked about that kind of impulse a lot. I want the impulse to be step the fuck back, like get like step your ego back, like I
Yeah.
want that to be the impulse, because the result of the ego driven one is these kind of horrific states of fear, that I already know suck, so I
Right.
don't need to
Right.
continue it.
Well, to that end, in within the context of what you just said and the Lojong slogan that we read at the outset, knowing, that what Tara is pushing us towards is the reduction or elimination of ego. We've been learning more about like the eight verses of thought transformation, I think is what it's called, something to that
Mm,
effect. And just imagine if you were in that line, right? And that, like you really were like considering yourself the lowest of all, right? And you were
mm,
holding others like that person, who's cutting in front of you or going down the other lane there, and thinking that they were dear and supreme, right? Like this is
yeah,
how we know that our clinging is still incredibly strong and that we have a long ways to go, is because I can't imagine. I know for a fact that it's going to be a while before I really feel that truly from the depths of my heart.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, and that's, we really have to take these trainings with a bunch of repetition, right? And just like really, really, really steep our minds in them, right? It Because otherwise, yeah, our habitual tendencies are so strong. Um
That's
and
right.
we
And
want to counteract.
Jack,
Mhm.
the thing is those habitual tendencies, we will repeat. The way they became habit was that we repeated them again and again and again and
Right,
again.
right,
So
right.
we could use that same thing, right?
Yes,
To turn it the other direction. Just keep doing it again and again and again and
right.
again, and it'll become habit.
It will. Yeah. Just keep hacking away at it.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And lean on the support that you have with our
Yeah.
teachers, with the teachings and with the Sangha. We have support, as Sue Forrester oftentimes says. Support
Mhm.
is there.
We have it. Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding us of that. And thank you so much for this fun conversation.
I know it. Wait,
A
wait.
good
I
outing.
know it's
Yeah.
time to go, but I got to tell you one quick story. I was at the temple and it was all dark, right? And no one was there. This is right before I came over into the cottage here.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, well, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get into the cottage. I should go into the temple and maybe just set up in there. And so, like whole place is empty, and I go walking. And as I get closer to, so I was in the library, and I get closer to the actual temple, and I'm like, I hear this music, and it's like spooky Halloween music. And I was like, what in the world? Where's like, there's nothing nearby. Where's that coming from? And I was so sure I was all by myself. And I open up the door and I go in there, and there's like candlelight and like spooky music, and the door's wide open. And our friend Connor is sitting by the front door. The TV screens have pumpkin Halloween something. The Halloween music is playing. He's got a big old bowl of candy. There's jack-o'-lanterns out. The
Oh,
doors are open, and he's inviting trick-or-treaters to come and get candy from him.
that's awesome.
I had hoped, I told him, I said, I think that what I'd love to be able to do is fire up Zoom on my phone and then wander over there and show it off to you. But I was having trouble connecting and making.
Oh, I wish we could have seen that, but
I
it's
just
just,
wanted to describe it to you because
yeah,
it was fun.
it's so lovely to imagine. And yeah, what a wonderful way to spend Halloween too. At the temple, and yeah, just seeing wonderful little beans
Yeah,
in
yeah,
their
exactly. He had
outfits.
some, I don't know what he was reading. It was a Dharma book of something. So he was sitting there,
Nice.
reading and handing out candy.
Hell yeah. Good
Yeah.
work, Connor.
I'll send you, if he's still over there, I'll send you a picture of him. See.
Please do. Yes.
Thank
All
you,
right, my
Jack. I
friend.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Have a beautiful evening. And
Too.
yeah, to next week.
Yep. Uh-huh. Bye, everybody.
Bye.